Hi everyone, it's Monica and I'm back with another video for you guys, and today I'm super excited to be sharing with you guys my labor and delivery story with my baby number 2. I know someone actually had commented on one of my videos and asking for an update because my last video was my 39th and 40th week pregnancy update, and I mentioned there that hopefully my next video is not going to be about my 41st week pregnancy update. I gave birth to my baby girl when I was 40 weeks and 2 days pregnant. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So during my 39th week, I saw my OB, and she did a membrane sweep, and obviously that didn't work. I had cramping all day, and I was actually quite excited, but nothing happened. My baby's over there, which I'm going to insert a clip at the end of this video for you guys to see my baby girl. So that was 39 weeks. That was 39 weeks, and then I went back to see my OB during my 40th week and 1 day pregnant, and she did another sweep, and then we did talk about induction at 41st week. So she did a membrane sweep, 40 weeks and 1 day pregnant, and that was around 2:30 p.m. The same day, that night at 10 p.m. I started having contractions. At first, I wasn't sure if it was the real thing. Like, even if you're pregnant the first time, second time around, and you've experienced contractions, sometimes you still second guess yourself just because false labor could happen as well. So that same day, that night around 10 p.m. I started having contractions, but I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell Terry, because I didn't want to get their hopes up. And yeah, so what I did is I just started timing them. So I was timing them, and the contractions were about 4 to 7 minutes apart, lasting about 30 to 45 seconds long. And so yeah, it just went on like that. So at first I was timing them, and then I realized, okay, I should stop timing them because I think for sure this is it. So I might as well just try and relax so I have energy later when I go into labor, like actual labor, like, you know, like the real pain. Because at the time, even though I was having real contractions, it was still somewhat tolerable, I would say. They felt like period cramps, but like stronger. I told Terry that I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm just gonna try and relax there, and I told him that I was having contractions and it's best that he should just take the day off because I think today is the day. So that was that. I told him just go rest because I knew, like, you know, it was going to be a long day. So I went downstairs and just laid on the couch. Not laid, but more like I was still like sitting upright, but just kind of slanted, and I was timing my contractions, and then I stopped and then I relaxed. And then around 6 a.m. Terry woke up, and then I told him, yeah, for sure this is it, but I don't want to go to the hospital yet, just because I want to labor at home for as long as I can, but not too long. Like, I wanted to labor for as long as I can, but also not to wait too long because I had a previous C-section. So with C-section, and then this time around I tried for a VBAC. VBAC stands for vaginal birth after cesarean. If you guys know about it, you know that when you're trying for a VBAC and then your water breaks or you have contractions, you shouldn't wait too long to go to the hospital, because one of the major risks with VBAC is getting your or having your uterus rupture, which obviously like it's so scary, and you're probably thinking like, so yeah, that's crazy, that's a crazy risk, why would you even try that? But when I did my research, I did my reading, the statistics are actually very low, so I went ahead with it anyway. That was my decision, and my OB knew that. So yeah, so that was 6 a.m. when Terry woke up, and then around 9 o'clock in the morning, we went to the hospital. Around 9:30 I got admitted, and then 9:45 a.m. I got checked. My OB that I regularly see, she was actually on call that day at the hospital, so she basically, yeah, she delivered my baby. And so when I got checked around 9:45 a.m., she said that I was about 4 centimeters dilated. So I was in the room, and I got hooked on the, or they gave me the antibiotics, like the IV antibiotics for GBS positive. And so I was just there. The contractions were getting stronger, but they were still tolerable. But yeah, they were getting pretty intense. So I was just, you know, Terry was beside me, and I was just like squeezing his hand every time the contractions would come on. They were about, I think, like a minute or less apart, and they would last about, yeah, a minute long. And so around 1:30, my OB came in the room again to check me, and she said, okay, you're at a 6. So I got excited. I was at a 6, but at the same time I wished I was like further along, just because the contractions were getting strong at that point. And she said that she suggested to break my water, and I was really afraid of that, because obviously breaking your water is a form of induction. Like when you're trying for a VBAC, you want your body to do its own thing as much as you can to have a successful VBAC. I mean, not to say that inductions weren't done and they were all unsuccessful. It's just to each their own. But from what I read, it's best to just like let your body do its thing. So when she recommended to break my water, I was hesitant. I was like, I don't know if my water, or if my body's actually ready for that. She said something like, so if we break your water, 2 things are going to happen. You may progress faster, and you would also have strong contractions. So I was a bit iffy about that, because yes, I do want to progress faster, but I also don't want to have like some crazy contractions, like, you know, because of my previous C-section. So, you know, I was kind of torn, but you know, I just kind of like, you know, I was just like praying, and I just trusted her, I guess. And I said, okay, you know, when she mentioned progressing faster, I was just leaning on that. I was just hoping that that's what is going to happen. So around 2:30, she broke my water, and so it just, you know, started dripping. If you've given birth before and you had your water broken, or your water broke naturally, you know how that feels. And oh my goodness, the contractions were so strong. I was like, oh my god, like I'm not sure I could stay on this bed. Like I wanted to try something different. So at in the room where I was staying at, they had a jacuzzi, so the nurse offered that if I wanted to try that. I said yes, if you could put the water more on the hot temperature, you know, not obviously too hot. And she said yeah, for sure. And then yeah, I went in there for about 20-30 minutes. It really took the edge off, but after some time I was like, oh my god, like it's getting too hot. I don't think I should be staying here anymore. So I told the nurse I want to transfer onto the bed. And so I did. I can't remember what time it was. It would have been, this would have been like past 3 p.m. And so I transferred onto the bed, and the contractions were like, oh my God. I was wondering, like, I wonder how dilated I am now, because I was like, oh my God, like, this is just too painful. Like, you know, like, am I close to 10 centimeters or what? Like, obviously my OB was on call that day, so it's not like she was just in the room the whole time, but the nurse was. And then so when I was on the bed, trying to labor and trying to just go through the contractions, and they were getting painful, the nurse offered me a peanut ball, which helped a lot. And I also, when I was preparing for this VBAC, I read something about using a peanut ball that it helps with labor. So I tried that for about maybe 15 minutes, and it was good for a little bit, but then I just felt like I needed to try something else. So the nurse offered a heated pad. So that was good as well. So she placed it on my lower back. And that felt really good. Again, just for a little bit. I didn't want to have any pain relief. Like, if you have seen my video regarding my labor and delivery with my first child, like I said, I had a C-section and I had an epidural, and the epidural, I didn't have, like, the side effect was just, wow. Like, epidural at this time with the second pregnancy, like, I knew from the get-go I am not going to get epidural. And nothing against moms who's had epidural, or who's planning to get an epidural. In fact, like, yeah, like, I had an epidural with my first child because I knew some of my friends that had it and had good experience with it, and so I just kind of went with that. But that wasn't the case for me. I ended up with a spinal headache and then ended up getting a blood patch. Anyway, if you want to see that video, I will link that down below. So anyway, so I didn't want to relive that. I didn't want to get that headache again. So I really was just trying to be strong, going through these contractions. And yeah, like, there was no way I was going to get that epidural. So I didn't. So I was trying that heated pad, like I said, so that was good. And after a while, I was like, okay, I need to try something else. I feel like maybe I just, like, I don't know, like, I just need to move, or like just try something else, because the contractions were like, I couldn't even explain it. Like, it was like there was so much pressure down below, like front and back. Like, you don't know, like, it's like ripping your insides. It's like you don't know whether, like, you need to push or not. Like, I at some point felt like I needed to push, but I guess that was just a natural feeling. But at the same time, like, I wasn't at 10 centimeters yet, but every time the contractions were coming along, that's just how it felt. Like, I needed to push, and just so much pressure. And of course, once your water is broken, so the less and less water that's there, the stronger you are going to feel the contractions. Because obviously, like, you know, the water is kind of like the jelly, like, it's like a protection, like, for the baby. And that's why they recommend that when your water breaks, you have to go to the hospital right away, because there's more of a rush for you to get that baby out of you, because it's not safe for them anymore to be in your belly for a long period of time when your water has broken. And so the nurse was like, okay, well, did you want to try another position? Maybe did you want to try to be on your knees, and then kind of go like that on the bed? on my knees. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll try that, because I've also read about that position during labor, that it's also a good position, like going through contractions. So I tried that, and I wasn't sure if it was helping or what, but just the contractions were like so painful. And while I was going through these contractions, I looked down on the bed and I saw that I was bleeding. So I was thinking to myself, like, was I bleeding all along? Like, as far as I know, it was just my water dripping, until I looked down and started seeing blood. So I wasn't sure how long I was bleeding for, but I guess it was just around that time, because the nurse was there. She was also looking after me and checking up on me. And then, so I looked down and I was thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like, why am I bleeding? And I heard the nurse kind of whispered low, oh no, this isn't good. So I kind of like, oh my God, I kind of just like freaked out, thinking like, oh my God, did my uterus rupture, or what is going on? And then I heard her page my OB, and then a few minutes later my OB came in to check me, and the nurse was like transferring this messages. Yeah, like she started bleeding, this and that. And I was like, deep down, I was like panicking. I was panicking, and I was just so scared of like what could it be? Like, what could it be? Like, is it my, like, number one thing that's in my head was like, is it my uterus? Like, did it rupture or what? And so they had me like lay down on the bed, and then my OB checked me, and she's like, yeah, Monica, yes, you are bleeding. We're not sure why. So when she said that, I was like, you're not sure why? I mean, I was kind of glad that she didn't say my uterus had ruptured, but I also wasn't satisfied with her answer, we're not sure why. So she said, I heard her tell the nurse, let me just check her again how far she's at, like dilation wise, because if she's close to a 10, or if she's at a 10, then I'm gonna, like, let's try to get her to push, because she's obviously worked this hard. She's, you know, like, she's gone through these contractions, and if she's already there, then, you know, we might as well. So she checked me again, and I was at a 7. So 3 centimeters to go, and I was bleeding. And so I started really freaking out. I was like, the fact that the OB didn't know why I was bleeding, it was just so scary for me, just thinking of my baby, like, what, you know, like, if something were to happen to my baby, like, God forbid, like, I would never be able to live my life the same way again. And I was thinking, like, you know, what's going to happen now? Like, you know, I was thinking of Maya, like my toddler at home, just, you know, just all the worries. And of course, like, as much as I wanted to calm down, like, that's like almost impossible. And then what do you call this? So she said I was at a 7, and then she said, Monica, you're bleeding. I know how you feel about C-section. I know you wanted to try for a VBAC, but you are bleeding, and I don't think it's safe for you to be going through these contractions while you're bleeding. And if you want to progress faster, her original plan was to offer me a little bit of oxytocin, just a little bit, she said, again, to help me progress faster, but also contractions would be stronger. So when she said that it's not safe for me, she doesn't think it's safe for me to be going through the contractions, you know, still at a 7 centimeters while I was bleeding. So I immediately, you know, had this thought that, okay, well, you know what, at the end of the day, yes, I do want a VBAC. Why do I want it? Because I find that C-section recovery was much harder, and from what I read and from what from what I read and from friends telling me that vaginal birth is you just recover faster, which makes total sense. And that's what I wanted, considering having a newborn and having a toddler. So that's why I want to try for a VBAC, because I want to be able to move around more and faster. But anyway, so my OB was like, so she ended up talking about C-section, and as she was talking about this, I keep seeing this, like, more hospital staff coming in the room, like more nurses. And while she was talking about this, I was going through these painful contractions, and I had this feeling in me that a big transition is about to happen. And I relived that moment where I was in labor with my first child, where, you know, I did not dilate up to 10 centimeters. I was only able to dilate 8 centimeters. And then my baby's heart rate was in distress, so I ended up in an emergency C-section. So as I saw this, like, nurses coming in, and, you know, and my OB just talking about C-section, I just felt like I just saw myself in that OR, in that operating room or table again. I kind of like envisioned it, because again, she was already talking about it, and I was not going to be stubborn, because I admit I was so scared. I was so scared, and I like the fact that no one knew why I was bleeding. So basically, I signed this form about the C-section that yes, I'm okay with it. So I like signed it, and there's so many things written onto it, but really when you're going through the contractions, and I was like panicky, like I had no time to read it. And at that time I was so emotional. I was crying because of two things, because I didn't know how my baby was doing, and secondly because the contractions were painful. So my OB said that, don't worry, Monica, your baby's heart rate is fine, we just don't know why you're bleeding. So it gave me a little bit of relief when she said that about the baby's heart rate being okay, but I still wasn't 100%, good with it, because like I just wanted to see my baby like ASAP. So anyway, I signed it, and then they prepped me for C-section. So yeah, basically it was a failed VBAC. So they put me in the OR, and oh my god, at this point the contractions were just like, wow, like this is like to the next level. This is to the next level. And then I guess it didn't help that I wasn't calm as well, because how could I be calm knowing that I am bleeding? And it wasn't just that, being at that operating room and seeing all this staff, that I think they were like about seven to nine staff that was like in that room, like nurses, and then my OB, and the anesthesiologist that was on call that day. He wasn't there yet, and I remember screaming like, where is the anesthesiologist? Like, because I just wanted to get over the pain, and I just wanted them to get started, because I was getting worried even more. So where is the anesthesiologist? And they were like, he's coming in 15 minutes. I'm like, 15 minutes? I was like, oh my god. Like, anyway, it felt like forever. I didn't think it took him that long, but anyway, eventually he came in the room, and then I told him that no epidural for me. My OB had explained that to him, but I just had to say it again. No epidural for me. And then, so here in Canada, they do three things. They give you either of the three: general anesthesia, which will put you under, like, you're completely unconscious, which is like, why would I want that? Second is epidural, and third is like spinal tap. So the epidural and spinal, they're similar in some ways, but the spinal tap, they use a smaller needle, and they insert the needle more of the middle to upper back. I felt the needle went in a little bit upper back and in the upper and middle of my spine, whereas the epidural, when I had it with my first child, it was like right on the lower back. So I told him like no epidural, and then I heard like one of this, like the nurses there, oh, it's the same thing, blah blah. I said, like in my head, I'm just like, I don't care, I just don't want epidural, because I'm just thinking that maybe there is a chance that if I tried the spinal tap, if I had the spinal tap, maybe I wouldn't get that spinal headache again. You know, I was just like hoping for the best. The anesthesiologist was there, and then the spinal tap was done, and then they got started. For some reason, like this time around, the C-section this time around, it felt like it was so much longer compared to my first C-section. My first C-section, I think it was like under 20 minutes. Like my first C-section, they started at 12 a.m. and then 12:20 my baby was out. But this time, it just felt like it took longer. I'm not sure why. Maybe because that's really how long it takes, and the fact that my baby's heart rate was not in distress this time around. Anyway, so this was around like past 6 p.m. and yeah, so they got started, and then my baby was out at 6:41, and then I was just waiting to hear that cry. I remember during this whole time, like there's this like, the bright lights, when you're under the operating room, you could just see it, and then I could see like the blood, like it was so gross. Like I don't know what they're doing, like I can't see exactly, which like I'm thankful for, but I just focused myself on Terry. He was on my right side, so I was trying to talk to him. We were just, like, I was now calm because obviously I couldn't feel the contractions anymore, and basically just trying to stay awake, because I just want to make sure that I'm there for, when my baby's, out. So at 6:41, my baby's out, and then they went like this, like, oh, here she is, she's perfect. And then when I saw her, I was just so emotional. I was just so happy to see her and to see that she's like, she looked so like, she's just this tiny little thing. Like she's my second baby, but you just forget like how tiny they were. Like even though she's bigger than my first child, she was born 7.1 pounds, and my first baby was 6.4 pounds. So yeah, so that was that. They stitched me back up. Basically my placenta had abrupted, but yeah, like something I've never heard before. And my OB said, yeah, so that's what happened. I'm not really sure how it happened, but when I came home from the hospital, I obviously looked it up, and one of the reasons why your placenta could rupture was that if your water broke and your body wasn't ready for it. And so it just made me think of that moment when my OB broke my water, and I felt like my body wasn't ready for that, and I feel like that was actually the case. Like she broke my water and my body wasn't ready for it, and that happened. So yeah, so that was the bleeding. That was what it was about. But yeah, like, at the end of it all, like, I'm just thankful that my baby's here. She's healthy, no complications or anything like that. So thank God. And yeah, so I just had to stay, like, I think we stayed like almost 3 days at the hospital because of the C-section. But so yeah, now I'm just like trying to recover from that surgery, but all is well. Yeah, so I will insert a clip now of my baby girl. Thank you guys all so much for watching. For you guys that are tuning in, just like you know, watching my pregnancy videos, thank you guys all so much. And if you are new to my channel, would you consider subscribing? I make mommy and lifestyle videos. And yeah, hopefully I didn't forget anything. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave it on the comment section down below, and I'll try my best to answer your questions. And yeah, I'm just looking at my baby over there. Okay, that's it, guys. Bye. Here she is, guys. We decided to name her Bodhi Liv. And that's her sleeping. I just fed her like half an hour ago, so yeah. These cute little toes tucked in there. So yeah, that is her.